Hello, all, and welcome to the Movie Bears podcast. I'm Brad Harris, and each week I'm joined by hunky, hairy, huggable homos who love film to discuss sometimes movie news, sometimes review movies, or sometimes do something crazy cool like we're about to do this week on our show. We'll get to that in a second. But let me introduce you to my fantabulous co-host, Jim Pliafico is back with us. Welcome, Jim.
Thanks, and welcome to the podcast, everyone.
Will Lindis is here with us as well. Welcome, Will.
Hey, boys and girls, welcome back.
And happy 2016, everybody.
Yes.
Yeah, woo! Glad to be in the new
Clean
year,
slate. Yep, clean slate. We're ready to go.
That's right. We're all alive to start out another year.
Always a good thing. Like,
Right.
we've made it through the first barrier. I'm excited because we all do. We're movie fans. We do all of those like movie lists and I saw this, I saw that last year, and it's time to start a new list of movies. It's time to see what amazing movies are going to come out this year that are going to blow us away.
Oh,
Right.
absolutely, absolutely. But before we get to those new movies, I think it's good to take a look back, right? It's also that time of year where we kind of look back on what came before, because to understand where you're going, you've got to know where you've been, right? And that's what we'll be doing this week and next. This week is going to be a bit of a build-up to next week. Next week, we'll be talking about our top films of 2015. A lot of people have been asking for that list from us. You guys know we do a yearly show about it. It's coming, we promise. But this week, we thought we would do something fun. You know, the last few years, and I love that we can say the last few years, we've built up history on the show at this point. We've talked about, like, the worst movies of the year, or, gosh, he was so good in such and such movie. Didn't think he would be awesome at all, but he blew my mind. Well, we decided to sort of encapsulate all of those wonderful things. Not the top 10, top movies of 2015. That's coming next week. But we're putting together some of these crazy categories we feel like giving awards to on our first annual Movie Bears podcast annual award show. So, celebration, woo!
We would give away statues, but we don't have the budget for it.
That's right.
We'll make them in Photoshop. I'm thinking like some bevel and emboss, maybe apply metal texture to our logo, slap some gold paint on it, and put it on a stick.
So fancy. I like that, Brad.
That could work.
We should have done that.
Well, maybe we will. Maybe that'll be the graphic for the show this week. You'll have to look at moviebearspodcast.com later on this week and see. But we have several categories that we're going to be talking about tonight, or today if you're listening outside of our temporal relativity in terms of when we're recording to where you're listening. But we're going to be going through these categories. We already have some folks that are watching live. Hello, welcome, glad to have you. If you want to share your picks, which movie or actor or actress you would give an MBP award to, feel free to let us know in the comments. You can comment on the video or on Facebook, and as long as your comments are safe for work, we'll read them on air. If it's some crazy weird diatribe, we may not. Just putting that out there, let you know.
Within reason, everything
within reason. But yeah. So guys, are we ready to hand out some awards? What do you think?
So ready for this. This is going to be a lot of fun.
And as we go along, if you guys have an idea for the categories that we're just somehow just escaping us, pop it into the chat and let us know.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
We'll definitely take some categories on the fly.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And again, just a reminder, this is not our list of Oscar picks. If that's what you're tuning in for, hang out for this show anyway.
No,
but tune in maybe next
totally
week.
different thing.
Yeah, but let's get
started. Who cares
started.
about Oscars anyway?
Yeah, Really, seriously, especially ones that are on Sesame Street.
Once our awards get a little traction, I think the Oscars are going to be just a distant memory.
That's probably true.
Really? I mean, every time around this time of year, people are going to tune in. We're going to give away our Golden Boss MBP logos. I like it. We'll get Neil Patrick Harris to host next year.
Because this is the shit we care about.
Indeed. All right, so our first category, guys. I love this category, and I'll tell you why. This is our biggest shocker category. And these are movies that maybe we had low expectations for. Maybe we didn't think they were going to be very good. Maybe we thought they were going to be I, Frankenstein pieces of crap. But they ended up being amazing. Totally took us by surprise.
Or
shocked us, if you will. Or, on the flip side, movies that we thought were going to be so incredibly amazing. How cool is this movie going to be? And then we watch the movie, and it's like, so awful, you can't even believe it. So, biggest shocker. I think for me, guys, one of the reasons I love this category so much, and Jim, you can sort of attest to this, there are movies sometimes where I watch the trailer, and I'm just like, good Lord, that looks so freaking stupid. Like, I don't even want to see this movie. Right. For instance, Wild last year. Saw that trailer like 50 times.
Nothing special. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I'm just like, whatever. And Jim's like, Brad, we have to go see this movie. And I'm like, you're kidding me. Really? Reese Witherspoon hiking? Really? Ended up being my favorite movie of last year. So I love it when movies take me by surprise like that. I'm going to focus on a positive shocker. And for me, I got to tell you, this year, that was Inside Out. You know, the first trailer for the movie did not excite me at all. I thought it looked really, really dumb. Second trailer for the movie, marginally cooler because it had More Than a Feeling by Boston as the soundtrack. It had a bear joke in the trailer, but I still thought it looked pretty dumb. So when Jim was like, hey, we should go see this movie, I'm like, ugh, really? And Jim's like, Reese Witherspoon hiking? Really?
Pixar.
I'm like, oh, right, okay, let's go see this movie. And I gotta tell you, I fucking blew the walls off my expectations. Amazing movie. It's an animated film. It is Pixar. For me, I think it's probably the best Pixar film for me. Like, I've really been thinking about that, letting that cogitate in my brain, and I think it has surpassed some previous picks for me that held that title. So, phenomenal film for me. Big shocker.
Yeah, Brad. I mean, I remember, watching the trailers too, and I definitely knew when the movie came out and it was Pixar, and it was like, oh, it's going to be this different take on what happens inside a person's brain with, in this case, a little girl with emotions and stuff like that. I'm like, that's not super original, but it could be good. But you're right, the trailers made it look very generic, and I don't know if that was by design or they just couldn't show a lot of other stuff without giving too much of it away. But a big contrast between the interest that we had in the trailers versus what we got on the screen. And you're right. I think it's a big surprise this year. But yeah, good pick.
Yeah, definitely a good pick. I was probably a little higher on this one going into it. The trailers were a little better for me, but I'm glad that we all three of us walked away from this movie just absolutely adoring it. I remember that was one of our most positive review episodes, just all three of us, like, not only raving about this movie, but all three of us just kind of glowing from the movie. Like, that was so much fun. So, yeah, really good pick, Brad.
That movie was totally a joy to behold.
I would hold up my Inside Out toy, but it's a little spoilery.
So, Will, what about you? What's your pick in this category?
So your criteria was the exact same one that I went for. I was looking for a movie where I saw the trailer and I thought, well, this looks like a waste of time. This looks like one of those movies that you're going to go see, and then it'll immediately go right in one eye, right out the other. 2 weeks later, you'll forget that you even saw it. And instead, when I saw Joel Edgerton's The Gift, I was absolutely blown away. It was one of the best, most tense movies of the year. It's a brilliant little thriller. If people haven't heard of it, and a lot of people haven't, a lot of people very quickly disregarded this movie and immediately went on to the next thing. But it's a nice little mystery thriller about a couple dealing with this like creepy neighbor. And I'll kind of leave it there actually. Joel Edgerton both wrote and directed and starred in this movie with Rebecca Hall and Jason Bateman also starring. So darn good. Keeps you at the edge of your seat the entire time. Keeps you guessing. I think The Gift is one of those movies that did a lot for me when I was expecting absolutely zero. I think a lot of people probably skipped this one because of the trailer. So if you were one of those people, go track it down on VOD. It's absolutely worth your time.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're right. I mean, we talked about the trailers kind of not being up to the quality of the movie, and this was a good case of that. And as far as the biggest shocker, one of the other big shockers is that, Joel Edgerton, who we see acting in a lot of movies these days. I mean, he was in a lot of movies this year.
Oh yeah.
Found a time to write and direct this movie. I mean,
crazy.
So that's a big shocker in itself. I mean, I think one of the most memorable surprises, and we talk about expectation management a lot. This is the kind of category that kind of captures the essence of that concept of expectation management, right? It could anyway.
Absolutely, especially coming on the heels of Exodus, Gods and Kings.
Right?
It's kind of like,
yeah,
really, this guy in another movie that I have to watch. But you're right, Will. It was so unexpectedly good.
Mm-hmm. He wasn't wearing as much gold in this movie.
That's true. That's true. Maybe his next movie will have more guy liner.
Maybe. All right, Jim. What about you? What's your pick?
Well, now that one dropped off my list, I'm going to have to go to my number 2, and that is a movie where I won't say that the trailer didn't sell the movie to me, because it kind of did, but I can see where the trailer might not sell the movie to everybody. And this is a movie that was kind of a small movie that came out this year called Dope. And really kind of came out of nowhere and surprised me. This is I'm trying to think of who directed this one. I should have been looking this up while I was scrambling for my second pick. But this one, God, give me a minute, guys. This is ridiculous. My computer's crashing.
Hey, no problem. I got it here if you need it. Rick Famuyiwa.
What is it?
Rick, and I'm terrible with names sometimes, but Famuyiwa.
Yeah, I'm good. My computer's crashing, guys. I can't do anything.
Oh no!
Yeah.
It's locking up on you.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to edit this in, but. Arg.
The joys in the timer.
Here we go. Hold on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no worries. I'll just do a little more.
Show off your. Yeah, there you go.
For those of you who are watching live, you're getting to see this part of the show that won't make it into the audio version unless it says a stinger, which is a possibility.
It's always a possibility, but yeah, I doubt anyone's going to be stuck in traffic listening to a couple minutes of us like, Will's drinking a beer.
Okay.
Hey, Will, I have a question for you.
Hey, yeah?
Do you want to build a snowman?
Oh, nice. Is that a new one, or did I just forget that one? Because normally I'm more familiar with your Vinyl Art toys and.
No, I got her last Christmas actually. Okay. So I got, of course, Elsa. Cold Never Bothered Me Anyway. That's the one I normally show. I also have Olaf. Okay. But Santa brought me Kristoff and Sven, but I haven't opened them yet because we just got back from LA.
Okay.
I have the complete set now.
Okay, guys, I'm ready.
Are you ready? All right.
Yep.
All right.
All right. So Jim, do you just want to
I'm going to launch into it.
Okay. Here we go.
Yep. Yeah, so Dope is a movie by writer and director Rick Famuyiwa, I guess. And I swear we talked about this before, so you'd think I'd have the pronunciation right on the tip of my tongue. We did review this movie, as I remember, right? Or we at least talked about it.
If we didn't do a main review, it at least came up in plugs.
But anyway, Shamik Moore stars in this. Some really great young talent in this movie. The story was about this group of friends that grow up in a tough neighborhood. They get caught up in this bit of unknowingly get caught up in this crime drug scene, I guess. But it ends up obviously it's a kind of a twist on the coming of age movie. I thought this was a kind of a breath of fresh air. This movie when it came out, and I'm glad we went and saw it. I'm glad we made time for it. I know it's one of those movies that could kind of fall into maybe another one of our categories later on. I don't know if it will or not, but yeah, I really like this movie. It was one of the ones that like I said, probably The Gift was probably my biggest shocker, but the second biggest shocker for me was this movie, which I just didn't expect to be much of anything, and it kind of blew me away.
Yeah, this movie was totally dope.
Yeah. Oh, Brad.
Well, hence the title. Right?
But it's a very good pick, Jim. This is a movie I absolutely adored. And I was really excited. They did a main release of this film, and then a little later in the year, like after it had been out of theaters, they actually did a re-release, a small theatrical re-release, which I thought was not only cool, but also very exciting for the film. More people got a chance to see it, and it demonstrated that the film was seeing some success. Really good pick.
Yeah. And I think the most surprising thing for me was, the characters that were set up in here were totally non-stereotypical geeks. You know what I mean? That this group of geek friends that it's kind of a drama, kind of a comedy, but very, like I said, something totally unexpected and a breath of fresh air.
Absolutely. Yeah, great pick. Another one of those films where I'm like, I don't know about that. But I ended up so glad that we saw it. So, good pick. Well, Jim, do you want to introduce us to our next category?
Sure. So our next category is called Best Surprise Performance. And this is a performance by an actor or an actress that most surprised us, but might not be the most prominent or the best performance of the year, but the one that kind of took us by surprise the most. And for me, I don't want to be a hog and take two, so I won't. I'm going to pick one of the two that popped up on my list, and I'm going to say the one that I sat back after the movie and said, my God, what a performance that was. Who knew about this actor before? Was an actor called Jacob Tremblay from a movie called Room with Brie Larson, kind of in the second half of the year. I mean, this kid is probably all of maybe, I don't know, 9 or 10 years old at the time of this movie at the most, and you know me, you've heard me talk about child actors. Who play characters in movie can be so precocious and coached and kind of just kind of obnoxious. This was total opposite of that. Very natural, heartfelt. I don't know how they got the performance like that out of this kid, because it's almost like he was unaware of what was going on in terms of shooting a movie. But there were. Without giving away too much, the constraints of that movie, especially the first half of that movie, I can't imagine the shooting conditions that they were under. And to have him be able to act totally natural like that just kind of blew me away. His name is Jacob Tremblay, and I don't know if we'll see him in a lot of movies or not, but man, that performance was amazing.
Oh yeah, he really surprised me too. I mean, I expected Brie Larson to be good because she's amazing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But seeing the little kid in the trailer, I'm just like, oh god, this is going to be one of those like precocious little kid movies, and totally subverted that expectation. Absolutely, Jim, great pick.
Yeah, it was. I had a short list of actors and actresses I was going to pick, and Tremblay was at the top of my list as well. So
great, you stole one from me. Yeah, I stole one from
exactly. But yeah, like this kid is for the very same reasons you mentioned, Jim. Like, it's very easy to see very poorly directed kids in movies. Kids that just don't really do all that hot, that are very precocious, that are annoying, that are brats. We see that all the time in movies. This kid legitimately holds his own against Brie Larson, who is one of the best working actresses out there right now. And that's saying a lot for a kid who was, I believe you're right, 9 at the time of shooting. I hope this kid goes places. I'm really happy with his performance.
I think we need a new drinking game. Every time we say precocious kid, you got to take a shot.
Kid. Well, unfortunately, as long as they keep casting precocious kids, we're
going to shot. Indeed. Well, my pick is not a precocious kid, not by any means. I actually am picking an actor who has been around a really long time. Jim, I don't know if this was going to be your other pick. I suspect it may have been. Yeah, you're nodding. But I totally did not anticipate that this was going to be a performance that really made me almost stand up out of my seat and take notice. But Sylvester Stallone in Creed blew me away. I did not have high expectations. The Rocky movies, not one of my favorite genres of movie. Totally respect Sylvester Stallone. The original Rocky, my favorite. I think he was great in. But, everything else I've seen Sylvester Stallone in, except maybe Over the Top, when he turns his hat backwards and arm wrestles, have not always been super impressed with him. My God, this guy, I mean, he fucking turned it on in Creed. I mean, just so much charisma, so much understated emotion. There are some things that happen, and I don't want to spoil, but he sells those so believably without being heavy-handed or maudlin or overacting or I mean, I just think he did a phenomenal job in this film that I thought I'd walk out of the film going, God, put him out to pasture, he's done. Now I'm like, good God, let's see him in some more stuff, please. Asterisk, stuff that's not the Expendables movies.
Right. Good designation. Yeah, very great pick as well. I'm glad that we're all loving each other's picks, and and I think it goes to it speaks volumes for how strong these performances and how strong these films are that we're talking about. Absolutely correct. Stallone blew us away with this performance, and I think a lot of us had kind of written him off as just action guy. But you forget that the guy does have some chops. He's just not given a chance to really show them off. So I think this was a fantastic performance. I think it's one that I mean, we're probably going to see. We're not. This isn't the Oscar show, but we may be talking about him more when it's Oscar time, and that's an exciting prospect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you're right, Brad. I had 3 names on my list, and we've covered 2 of them already. And it's amazing that one is 9 and one is I don't
90.
know, 70 maybe, close to that. I don't know, but you said that he kind of turned it on for this role. I see. I know what you're saying, but I would almost say he kind of turned it off. He took away that kind of Sylvester Stallone swagger, bravado stuff, and stripped down to the kind of the essence of a really a genuine human being, a guy that's been through a lot in his life, and you really felt for him. After 1 or 2 scenes, you were right on board, and so I really like the way he kind of regulated his performance that way.
Indeed. All right, Will, close us out, my friend.
All right. So the most surprising performance of the year for me is someone who, it's one of those actresses who I always forget is way better than we give her credit for. I think a lot of us are used to thinking of Kristen Stewart as just that chick who's really awful in Twilight. This year, she turned in one of my favorite performances of the year in a film called Clouds of Sils Maria. It's her and Juliette Binoche starring against one another as a film star and her assistant. Kristen Stewart plays the assistant as they work on a revival play to get the star back in the limelight. Kristen Stewart turns in a brilliant performance here. She's one of those actresses who she has a really strong body of work beneath her, but just like everyone else, I always forget how good she is. And the fact that she's able to not only hold her own against Juliette Binoche, but honestly, she kind of stole the show. Made this one of my favorite performances of the year, and again, one that came out of left field for me. So it's Kristen Stewart. The film is Clouds of Sils Maria. It's on streaming right now. You can find it on Amazon. You should totally watch it and totally see just how good Kristen Stewart is when she's not doing shitty vampire movies.
You know, it's so true, Will, when you say that. Like, when you think of Kristen Stewart, you think of these god-awful Twilight movies. I have not seen this film that you speak of. Obviously, I need to. But I was really blown away by Kristen Stewart this year in another movie called Still Alice. I thought she did a phenomenal job in that film. I'm like, who is this person on my screen right now? Because I have never seen this Kristen Stewart. She was phenomenal. So I'll have to check that movie out, but definitely gotta echo your Kristen Stewart love this year.
Yeah, well, I can't say much other than what Brad said because I haven't seen The Clouds of Sils Maria yet. It's been at the near the top of my list all year, and it's just one of those movies that I never could get around to. But I am totally on board the Kristen Stewart, let's see what she does next train. It seemed like this year she turned in at least a couple of great performances. She's got some great movies coming up too. She's going to be in the next Ang Lee movie, the next Woody Allen movie. So this is definitely a name you're going to be seeing more of, and we're going to be paying more attention to her.
Most definitely. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, let's see. Our next category. Will, why don't you intro this one?
Absolutely. This category is one that speaks to me because I find myself, we talk about a lot of films here on this show. We talk about movies that we absolutely love, movies we hate, whatsoever. But we don't often get a chance to really talk about those movies that we come back to over and over and over again. This category is the most likely to get a rewatch. These are those films where on a lazy day or when you're feeling sick or just when you got the curiosity, you're going to turn that film back on. You're going to come back to it a year from now, 2 years from now, etc. This was a tough category for me because there was absolutely a wealth of options. And I guess I'm going first, so I'm probably going to take the obvious one off the board, and I apologize for that. Star Wars The Force Awakens is my pick for most likely to get a rewatch. Partially because it's the only film this year that I saw theatrically more than once, so it kind of gets it by default. There's only one other movie that came out this year that I watched a bunch when I got it on Blu-ray, but I know that I'm going to be coming back to this movie again. I'm going to try to catch it again in theaters. Once it is available on Blu-ray, you better believe I'm going to snatch that up. I'm going to marathon it like crazy, especially as we're getting ready for all of the other Star Wars movies that are coming out in the future. This wasn't necessarily one of the best films of the year for me, but it was certainly one of the most entertaining. And so for that, it's definitely the film that's probably most likely to get a rewatch for me.
Will, we're now 2-1. You've stolen two, and I've only stolen one of yours. So, boy, I don't know. I have. We talked about this, I think, just last week, like how we see so many movies, and there's always something new, kind of opening that we want to see, and we only have so much time to see movies that rewatching is kind of a forgotten luxury, I guess. We just don't have time to rewatch a lot of movies. So, but yes, I mean, Star Wars: The Force Awakens is one we've already seen twice. Is that right? I guess.
Twice, yeah.
And I know we'll probably see it at least one or two more times. I hope before it leaves theaters, sometime in 2018. And there's another couple of movies that I think are definitely rewatches for us, but I think they might show up on another list of mine. So I'm going to go to another one that's on my rewatch list, and this is one that when it first came out, I need to check this out because I'm very interested in the director. I think I've plugged it on the show before. I don't know if either of you guys have seen it. Will, maybe you have. It's a movie by director Javier Dolan called Mommy. And it's one of the. So I haven't actually rewatched this movie yet, but I bought the Blu-ray, so I know it's definitely going to be a rewatch. It was a tough Blu-ray actually to track down too this year because I think it was only released in Canada or something like that. But Xavier Dolan is. I don't know how other people might know him. He's done movies, Tom at the Farm, Lawrence Anyways. He actually directed a very talked about and very parodied music video for Adele's Hello. And his style is all over that video. So I recommend people get out there and take a look at his most recent feature film. The guy's like 26 years old and he's had like 5 feature films. And is just one of those incredible, savants or visionaries, whatever you want to call them. He writes and directs these movies. This one is named Mommy.
Awesome. I have not seen Mommy, but now that I know we apparently own the Blu-ray, I'm gonna have to. I do have to say, I mean, I do love the music video for Hello. Great song, but I mean, I just love this sort of cinematic style used in that video. So that kind of makes me excited to go back and rewatch this. Jim, I got to challenge you though. I mean, I know you and I operate a little bit differently. I'm a comfort rewatcher. It's what I do. Sometimes I would rather rewatch something I know I love than watch something new, depending on my mood.
You are.
So,
I know you are.
I mean, that's why I've watched Star Trek Deep Space Nine like 12 times from beginning to finish. I have a problem. So for me, I like this category too because, every year there's at least 1 or 2 movies that kind of fall into that category for me. And Will, you took the obvious one. Thank you for clearing that off the table so we could talk about another. And for me, that has got to be Jurassic World. I think I like this the most out of the 3 of us. That's not a pick that probably everyone is going to resonate with. But I loved the original Jurassic Park a ton. All the sequels that followed were total crap. With Jurassic World, people either love it or they hate it. Maybe you fall kind of in the middle somewhere, but it seems to be really polarizing. I loved this film. I mean, pretty much everything about this film, even the woman running in her high heels from a T-Rex, like the most laughable thing of the whole movie, in slow motion. I still thought was great. We saw this movie a couple times in movie theaters. I bought it in iTunes and I've watched it twice since then. Wow. So I've watched it 4 times this year already. Yeah, when I was sick a few weeks ago, Jim, I watched it again. I don't know if I told you that. I've been cheating on you with Dallas Bryce Howard. I'm sorry.
Movie cheating on me. You're movie cheating. It happens.
Yeah, but I love this movie. I mean, it's one of those things I say comfort rewatch. That's exactly what I'm thinking of. Like, I'm sick. I can't decide what I want to watch. There's just so many things. It's easier just to pick something I already know I love.
Yeah, and no need to apologize. You said I'm sorry. It's like no need to apologize for what you like. If this is the movie that you come back to, there's something about this film that obviously speaks to you, and that's fantastic. I think that's what's so great about this category is we all have those films that we rely on or we lean on for whatever reason, and that happens to be yours. That's awesome.
Indeed. All right, well, I will take... Wait, did we really just bank 3 minutes on that category? How did we do that?
I think so. Yeah.
We did. Wow. All right.
Well, that'll give us a chance to soapbox later on.
There we go. All right. So I'll go ahead and introduce our next category here. So this one is biggest tearjerker. So these are those movies that totally like heart punch you and just make the warm water bleed out of your eye sockets. And for me, I already mentioned Inside Out, so I'm not going to go back to that one, although that one was a big tearjerker for me. I would say the next pick in that category for me is going to be The Good Dinosaur. We've seen it 3 times in movie theaters at this point, and every time I see this film, even though I know it's coming, I know what's happening, there are just certain moments in that film that have me hoping to God no one sees me reaching under my 3D glasses to wipe the tears out of my eyes. I don't want to spoil the movie. You see it in the trailer though. That scene where Arlo, as pictured over Jim's right shoulder, Arlo's laying down and he's got the little sticks, you know what I mean, and he draws a circle around him to signify his family or whatever, and and then he pushes the big one over, you know what I mean, and Spot, is coming up and hugging him. That moment just slays me. That makes me cry so hard. And I think there's something about people who haven't experienced grief in their life, people who haven't lost a parent or a partner or a sibling, someone that close, I think sometimes it can be hard to relate to them on a really deep level sometimes. But when you meet someone that has experienced a loss like that, you can kind of, it sounds weird, but you almost form a little bit of a bond around it. That person gets what you're feeling when a certain song comes on the radio or you smell a certain cologne or perfume. And I'm getting misty thinking about it. Oh my gosh. But that connection between Arlo and Spot and The Good Dinosaur, so good. Pixar twice in 1 year. I don't know how you do it.
Yeah, Pixar's great about that sort of thing. While the movie itself was not one of my favorites, I think you mentioned a specific scene, and if I were to just say one of the strongest, most tear-jerking scenes in cinema this year, I think you absolutely nailed it with that one. The scene with the stick in the heart and the dirt. That was one of those things, kind of like the beginning of Up, you can say, just look at this particular moment, and it's just like that particular scene was almost, you could almost make that a little short film in and of itself, and it would just absolutely wreck me every time. Beautiful, beautiful. For me, gosh, I'm looking at Jim here. I'm hoping I don't take one off the table for you again. But there's several good options left. I'm going to go with one that Jim mentioned earlier for his favorite blow-away actor. The film that was my biggest tearjerker of the year was Room. I'm not a big misty-eyed person in theaters. It's not, some movies get to me, some don't. But there are people who wear their hearts more on their sleeves at the cinema more than me. I'm usually more there, oh, that's a really good camera angle. Oh my gosh, look at that. I love the emotionality, but I'm also studying it for other reasons, just everything together. But Room, I think about 5 times I just stopped what I was doing and just had to wipe away some tears, and all through that movie. It's the relationship between the mother and the child in that were so darn good. It just really spoke to me. Yeah, you want a good cry or a bad cry or an ugly cry or whatever it is, I really recommend Room.
Yeah, well, I mean, there was definitely some misty moments in Room for me too, and I don't want to give away too much, although a lot of it again is, unfortunately, I think this is one of the worst offending trailers this year for spoilers. And that's too bad for this movie. This is one of those movies, folks, if you haven't seen Room yet and you don't know a lot about it, that's great. Go see it. Don't watch the trailer. Go see the movie. But there was a scene in the middle of the movie that goes from absolute terror to absolute oh my God, relief, kind of almost. And I'll just leave it at that. And between the mother and the son, and that's the one that got me the most. Brad, you mentioned The Good Dinosaur. There are 3 scenes in that movie that get me, every time. And you mentioned probably the biggest one that gets most people. There's two other scenes. There's the Mufasa scene that we. No, not that one. The one later in the movie.
Give me and more.
Yes. And then there's the new family scene. We'll just call it the new family scene. That gets me. So yeah, but my pick, I'm going to go back to one that Brad mentioned before. It'd be Inside Out. Inside Out is another Pixar movie. Will, you mentioned Up. That first 10 minutes of Up, I think, is a masterpiece. And if the movie was just that, released as a short, probably would have won an Academy Award that year.
Yeah.
Just some great dialogueless or wordless storytelling, and I love that. Inside Out had some moments in it with some characters, with certain characters in a very low place. That was pretty astounding. And then at the end of the movie, when when the main character, please help me with her name, Riley. What was her name?
Riley.
Yeah. Riley comes to realize that it's not just all joy, but in order to have really strong memories, you got to have maybe a little bit of. It's okay to have a little bit of sadness mixed with joy, and that's another scene in that movie that made me kind of tear up. I probably wear my heart on my sleeve too, like Brad does. So when a movie can make two fully grown adult men sit there and kind of bawl their eyes out, that it's doing its job as a tearjerker. And so my pick would be Inside Out for that.
Man, we are just giving out all kinds of awards tonight.
Yes.
Disney's really raking them in.
That one has to be a big giant teardrop. I mean, that one.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, Jim, I can't give enough love to Inside Out. Like, I could have chosen Inside Out for like 4 of these categories, I think, at this point.
Yeah. Right.
And such a great point. And you mentioned that place below. We're not talking about hell. We're talking about something else if you have not seen Inside Out yet. But yeah, all I'll say is I totally heart that pick because that slays me, it destroys me, it takes me to a place in my heart that's full of sadness and joy all at the same time. I don't know how they live together, but somehow they do. So
yeah, totally. Like when I was picking for this category, I was between Room and Inside Out, and so I'm very glad that you picked Inside Out as well. I love that these films are getting their due recognition from our little show.
Indeed. So that's it for Tearjerkers. Jim, why don't you introduce our next category?
Well, our next category is what we're going to call the best hell yeah moment.
Hell yeah!
Hell yeah moment in cinema this year. And this is the moment or the scene in a movie this year that just kind of got us going, hell yeah, or pumping your fist, or kind of getting on the edge of your seat, wanting to cheer. Last year, I probably would have picked a moment in the movie Godzilla for that, which was big, and I'm like, oh, please tell me Godzilla was this year. Nope, it was last year. So. But this year, my pick is going to be the final fight scene in Creed.
Yeah,
Creed.
Oh, you stole it, you steely McPherson.
You stole a good dinosaur from me in the last one. So.
All right, it's fine.
Yeah, Creed was, you knew it was going to be a boxing movie. I must have a soft spot for boxing movies. I mean, Raging Bull is one of my favorite all-time movies ever. The Fighter from David O. Russell from a few years ago was one of our top picks that year, if you remember. Love that movie. And this year, Creed, I think, was one of the biggest surprises. I'm surprised it didn't make our list of biggest surprises. But yeah, Stallone, helped choreograph like that last fight scene in Creed between Creed and what's his name? I forget the Irish dude's name in that movie.
Yeah, I forget offhand.
Yeah, but just fantastic camera work in that last scene. Just kind of puts you right there in the ring. And a lot was made about the first Rocky movie and the fight scenes in there and how they were. This is, brings the fight scenes in movies into the new, kind of the new age. Just really like edge of your seat stuff. You're rooting for this character. He's an earnest guy. A great job of acting by Michael B. Jordan as well. Just a good movie and a good scene.
Yeah, I mean, you stole the pick from me. It's only fair. But I typically am not into sports movies. I'm just not. They're not my thing. Especially boxing. That's not a sport that I really follow or really care about.
Mm-hmm.
The Fighter a couple years ago did a fairly passable job of making me care. But it was Creed, and specifically, Jordan, who really made me, like, seriously, I almost stood up in my seat cheering, like, at a certain point during that fight. And I was so anxious throughout that whole thing, and, like, I couldn't believe that a boxing movie, like, was doing that to me. I'm like, are you kidding? Really? How's this even happening? So, great pick, Jim. Absolutely. I love it. Yeah. Let's see. For me, let's... I was gonna go with that, but now I gotta switch. Guys, do we think everyone's seen Star Wars: The Force Awakens yet?
I think so, and I mean,
yeah, but
I'm gonna dance around it.
Dance around it.
I'm gonna try to say it without saying it, but my best hell yeah moment. All I'm gonna say is lightsaber and snow. That's my hell yeah moment.
Mm-hmm.
Like that moment in The Force Awakens. I'm sorry if you haven't seen it yet. I hope you go see it soon. I won't say anymore. But when that moment happens, like I was 3 years old again, and like so excited and so pumped and just so viscerally like, oh my god! Like it was awesome.
We need just like one of those Vine videos or GIFs of just that one scene for Brad.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh my god.
I would like watch that on the treadmill at the gym. Like that's how pumped up.
Yeah. Oh wow, yeah. That's a good one to pump you up, and I think you're in a safe space saying it the way you did too, because even the trailers for Star Wars: The Force Awakens were brilliant in that they gave away very little about the movie. So good job to the trailer campaign. But one of the things that you do see is a lightsaber and snow. So I don't think that's going to spoil anyone.
Yeah,
I think we're
okay.
I think you're fine there.
I think we're okay.
And good pick, yeah. Like there were a few hell yeah moments from that movie when certain people or certain objects appear on screen. Like it's just the type that make you go oh my god, yeah, fuck yeah. So very good pick, very good pick.
Thank you. All right, Will, close it out.
Yeah. So I've been debating between two, and I'm gonna go with my first instinct. And again, it was a movie that came out earlier this year, so most people who've probably wanted to see it probably already have, but just in case they haven't, there is a scene in The Kingsman, which another one of those movies that was way better than I expected it to be. I'll call it the church fight scene, and that particular scene was so well shot and so interesting. I found myself just blown away, like almost breathless when that scene was over. Like it's one of those things where it's almost like a roller coaster ride for that 3-4 minutes, however long that sequence is. Very frenetic, shit happening left and right. Like it's the type of fight scene that just kind of really keeps you going. And what's great about it too is I've even seen some like people have like done some like because it's out on Blu-ray, it's available now. People have done some like dissections of that scene, and there's some like really weird things happening in the background, including like some people that are just kind of phoning in performances and stuff like that. But you don't notice it because there's so much happening. Yeah, I really like that sequence a whole heck of a lot.
Well, that movie probably could have fallen into a couple of categories. One category is a rewatch. That's another one that could easily do with a rewatch. There's just a lot of moving pieces in that movie. Great performances. Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to maybe seeing that one again if the time permits.
Absolutely. All right. So, gosh, did we just bank 4.5 minutes?
Oh, wow.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Okay.
Crazy.
Well,
That's
good
all right.
news is that it gives us a little bit more time. I think our last category, there's the potential for some
I think
expounding. So, yeah.
Maybe.
Indeed. Yep. God, I have to stop saying indeed. I've gotten people totally drunk this episode.
Indeed.
Oh, there it is.
Mm.
There it is. It almost sounds like it was said by a precocious kid. Anyway. All right. So, next category, Mr. Lindis.
All right. The next category, this is a great one. It's the most underrated movie. This is that category that lets us show some love for that movie that we absolutely love that isn't necessarily like at the top of everyone's list. This doesn't mean that it's a movie that everyone else hates. The most underrated movie is just one that, for whatever reason, isn't making the top 10 lists, isn't necessarily catching on fire with general audiences or critics or whoever, at least to the degree that we feel these films deserve. The film that I want to bring up is a film that is personally in my it's chilling in my top 20 for the year, but it's not making a lot of top 10 lists, which is surprising for me. It's a film called The Duke of Burgundy. This is a film not a lot of people have seen. It's a film by Peter Strickland. This is the same guy who you may have seen if you've just been poking around on Netflix. You may have seen a film called Barbarian Sound Studio, and you may have watched that. But anyway, this is a film about this woman. She has this lesbian relationship with another woman, and she is completely subservient to the other person. So you've got this like almost like this dominatrix, this power imbalance between these two characters. But as the film progresses and you find out who holds the power in the relationship, you start to learn more and more about what it really takes to be in a BDSM relationship, what it really means to hold the power in a relationship, what it means to feel depowered in a relationship. It is one of the most interesting and nuanced depictions of love, of lust, of power, of weakness, of sex that I've seen this year, or probably have seen in general. And while I've seen a few people mention it or bring it up from time to time, it's just not setting the world on fire the way I'd like it to. So it's called The Duke of Burgundy. It's not the film for everybody. It is kind of a weird S&M themed drama. But if you find yourself kind of liking that sort of stuff, definitely check it out, because again, it's one of the most powerful movies of the year.
Well, I can't say a lot about it. I haven't heard. I haven't seen it, but I have heard about it. Does it share similar themes with Carol at all? No.
No, well, I guess if you if you crank it up to 11, maybe.
Oh, okay.
Certainly there's a lesbian relationship, and certainly there's a power imbalance, but whereas I think Carol is more about a film of two people kind of finding themselves, The Duke of Burgundy is really hyper-focused on that line of love and lust and who holds the power in a relationship. It's really hyper-focused on that particular element.
So does Duke of Burgundy have lots of shiny brooches?
Train sets?
There are some brooches.
Brooches, train sets, and windows.
No train sets, probably windows.
All right, awesome. All right, Jim, how about you?
Well, we've mentioned this movie already as one of the most underrated movies. And this one was one, as you guys know, I was super high on. I know, Will, you weren't. Brad, I think you liked it as well. But it it did okay with critics. It really didn't catch on with general audiences the way some other movies of its ilk have, and that's The Good Dinosaur. For a Pixar movie, it hasn't done very well at the box office. I think it's one of the first movies that Pixar has released that did not perform to box office expectations, I guess. Released right around Thanksgiving. Yeah, it's a movie that I personally loved. I love the story, but critics kind of knocked it for being a bit unoriginal. Some of the animation styles of the characters didn't jive with some people, and subsequently, I mean, it's maybe it didn't get panned by a lot of critics, but it's sitting at a point where kind of word of mouth, I think, maybe did this movie in a little bit. And just one that I love for a lot of reasons. I mean, it's a simple story. Yeah, I mean, coming of age movies and find your way home buddy movies are not necessarily that original anymore. But I just thought it was a pretty fresh take on it. I love the simplicity and heartfeltness of the story. But like I said, it didn't really catch on with everybody for whatever reason, and that's too bad. I think it'll be fine. Pixar is going to be fine. They released 2 movies this year. Inside Out was a huge smash, and I think part of the reason that this didn't catch on too was because it was released after Inside Out, so it got that obvious comparison to Inside Out, which 2 totally different kinds of movies. One was much more understated and simplistic. One had kind of high ideals and complex ideas, and when the second one compared to the first, it doesn't, it's seen as not standing up to the first. But I don't see it that way, but others did. So yeah, mine was going to be The Good Dinosaur.
Yep.
Either that or The Force Awakens, which that little movie that just hasn't caught on with audiences.
The little movie that could.
Right.
Fingers crossed. Maybe someday someone will see that Star Wars movie.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. It's so interesting that you say Good Dinosaur, Jim. I've talked about it a lot already in some of my picks, and it's one of those films that maybe people are used to one Pixar movie a year or something. I don't understand it myself. I talk to people, like at our Beer Buzz a couple weeks ago. I'm like, oh my gosh, have you seen The Good Dinosaur? We just got done seeing it for the 3rd time. And they're like, oh, that looks so dumb. Why would you go see that? It looks awful. Like, why would Pixar put out a piece of trash like that? I'm like, wait a second. Yeah. You haven't seen the movie. Why are you calling it a piece of trash? Well, just look at the character animations. They look so goofy and dumb.
That's another pet peeve of mine. Is not about this movie, but just in general, right? The whole thing about, oh, that looks dumb. Why would you ever see that?
Mm-hmm.
That prejudice, against certain movies, and maybe we have it too to some degree, but it still kind of tweaks me when I see it. So I try not to do that.
It's all semantics. Like, I think if someone says something to the point of like, that I don't like the way that looks, that's not something for me, I think that's very valid. Like,
Sure.
Marketing's job is to get your butt in the seat, and if marketing fails to push your buttons, that's not unfair. But that said, what I think is unfair for people to do is to then project that on others. Say,
Right.
That movie is dumb, and you're dumb for having seen it. It's like,
Right.
well, no, you don't know. It's like, you can say like that movie does not look like it's for me, but that's kind of where you leave it. That's as far as I think you can go.
Right. Agreed. And that leads me into my pick for most underrated movie. Will, in your setup for this, you mentioned it's movies that we love that just haven't gotten the buzz, they haven't caught on with audiences. I don't know that love is a word I would use to describe this film, but I do feel like this movie got a really bad rap right even before the movie came out. And so I want to give it a little love, even though I'm not in love with the movie. And I am speaking, of course, of Gem, because we are all Gem. It's not a great movie. It's not. It isn't. There are things that I really appreciated about Gem, But I think, kind of to your point, Jim, you know, Jim. A lot of people, a lot of people saw the trailer for this movie, myself included, and were like, "Wow, that doesn't look like Jem from the '80s cartoon. Like, it's going to be horrible. It's going to be trash. I'm totally not going to see it. That looks so dumb." But I took a note out of my Jim Pugliafico Silver Linings Playbook and went to see it anyway, and actually liked it. I think there are some cool things that this movie does to sort of modernize Jem, to kind of make it more relevant to today. I typically do not like pop music. Pop music, I'm looking at you. You're terrible sometimes. But some of the songs, I mean, we were driving the other day, and Jim's like, "Is this from Jem? Like, are you listening to Jem?"
It's not Adele. It's either Adele or Jem. That's what we get these days.
So I just don't feel like this movie really got a fair shake with audiences. You know, for people that have seen the movie and say, you know what, it was dumb, I didn't like it, that's one thing. But for people to be like, you know what, this is total trash, it's not even worth the digital media it's imprinted on, and they haven't seen the movie, I think that's unfair, and I think that's pretty shitty.
It's maddening.
So, Jem, I'm giving you some love.
I'm glad that movie got some love. I can't, again, it's not a great movie. It may not even be considered a good movie by a lot of people, but it's a movie that I enjoyed too. I considered putting this on my list. That didn't quite make it. But yeah, based on the amount of negative press this movie got and how much I went in and was kind of surprised me how, you know, relatively enjoyable it was. To me, it was harmless, enjoyable fun, and didn't bore me like other movies did. We'll get to those pretty soon. But yeah.
All right. So that brings us, guys, I think, to our final category. Jim, I think that's a good segue. Will, I love how you worded this earlier. The creme de la crap of 2015, the worst movies of 2015. We saved this category for last because people have been asking us on Facebook and Twitter, like, what our worst movies of last year were. And so we put it at the end, kind of like how reality TV cuts to a commercial break right before they reveal something important. So let's talk about those worst movies, but first, a message from our sponsor. No, I'm just kidding. So for me, guys, my worst movie of 2015 has got to be The Fantastic Four. Good God. I saw this movie. I wish I had not seen this movie. I tried to divest myself of expectations going in, and considering how much I do not like the Fantastic Four films of the early 2000s, I thought, you know, Miles Teller, you know what I mean, Michael B. Jordan, like there's such a recipe here for potential success, and it didn't happen. It was awful for me. I feel comfortable saying that because I've actually given the movie a chance and went to see it. It was just bad on so many levels. I just can't even. That's right. I can't even.
Welp, I can't even. No, don't get me started on stuff like that.
It's a bad pick, Brad. I mean, it's a good pick, but it's a bad film. I was really debating between two movies for my least favorite movie of the year, and Fantastic.
I think I know which one comes. I think I know which one you're going to pick, Will.
Oh, I'll be honest. It was kind of a crapshoot for me, because yeah, there were a lot of movies that kind of fell in that bottom tier for me, and it really came down to distancing myself from the movies and thinking back and saying, okay, yeah, I hated a lot of these movies in the moment, you know, but which ones do I think about now and they still bother me, like they still get under my skin? Fantastic Four was one of them. It was my second place or my next to last place or whatever that winner is, but the absolute worst movie of the year for me, it's Shooting Fish in the Barrel, but it's Pixels.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not what I would have guessed. But.
No, maybe the other ones that you're thinking about are. I've got a large dishonorable mention list, and we'll get to that in a moment. No, when I think back on Pixels, what bothers me most about this movie is this is a movie that to me felt like it was made without care or without compassion for its source materials. If anything, this movie was wanted to position itself as a love letter to video games, but it seems less like it was that in practice, and more like a cash grab by people who think, yeah, video games are popular right now, so let's make that. In fact, in some ways, it even feels like it loathes its source material by making the characters who are these video game fans nerdy, by making them unlikable, uncharismatic. Most of the characters that are capable in this film are also dicks. Peter Dinklage is at a career low in this film. Like, he's just not good. Josh Gad, someone that we absolutely adored in Frozen, not good in this. Kevin James, surprise, I didn't like Kevin James in this, but anyone that's listened to the show probably understands where that comes from. When Adam Sandler is the best thing in your movie, there's a problem. Pixels was a bad movie, and if I had the power to strike one film from the 2015 landscape, it never happened. It would be Pixels.
Well, totally echo that. Virtual high five.
Wow. So, all right, Brad, what was your pick? Did you pick?
I did pick it. It was Fantastic Four.
That's right. It was Fantastic Four and Pixels. So, Will, I'm surprised. I mean, well, on my list, I had several movies, and this was hard to break down, but a couple of these movies didn't get a wide release, I don't think, and were only festival movies. So I kind of put those aside because at a festival, you're going to see some really great, surprising movies and some really terrible ones. Excess Flesh, Disaster Playground. But so the one that did play at a festival but also got kind of a wide release that I absolutely loathed was a movie called Unfriended. This was a movie that, and the reason I just didn't like it from the get-go is it was a gimmick movie from the start. It had no qualms about hiding the fact that it was kind of a gimmick movie. The gimmick being the whole thing took place on a computer screen. And as kind of like a chat or a Skype between a bunch of friends that had done this shameful thing, and now they were made to pay the price. It's a horror movie, kind of a suspense horror movie. Unfortunately, part of my other problem with this movie is I hated every single person in the movie, including, so there was nothing to really root for except for the death of all the characters, which I won't say if we got or we didn't get, so I won't spoil that. But yeah, there was just nothing, just a bunch of snivelly-ass little teenagers being dicks to each other and unlikable, and I just couldn't find a hook to connect to this movie other than I wanted to see them all die, which, I guess is something, but not exactly what I would go typically and pay to see as a movie experience. And I know maybe a lot of people liked it because they liked the gimmick. It's kind of timely, in terms of what we do on social media today, and that's really cool. But I'm just looking for more of a story in my movies, and this one just really, really, even when I think back on it now, it still ticks me off a little bit.
Hey guys.
Yeah.
There's somebody else in the chat with us. I don't know what's going on.
Oh my God! It's 1CUWTRYP.jpg.
Can anyone get rid of this? No! Don't hurt me!
Is it?
And Brad sticks his hand in a
Laura, is that you? Laura, is that you?
You're gonna
Look,
be.
It
sorry.
wasn't me. It wasn't me.
You'll be sorry.
Hands up, guys! Hands up. It's one of those films where I think when we initially reviewed this film, I was a little more positive on it than you were, Jim. I don't remember absolutely adoring this movie. I don't remember being super high on it, but there were some things that were compelling, and I think more than anything, I guess there were some parts that were disappointing because it feels like if they had just done a couple of things differently, it could have been an absolutely great movie. One thing I did find was interesting, though, so I go through and I rank every movie that I watch throughout the course of the year, and just kind of like, okay, this one was slightly better than this was slightly better than that, and it's tedious, but this one shook out in kind of the bottom quarter of my film list for the year. So it's certainly, while it wasn't on my worst list or maybe even on my dishonorable list, it certainly isn't something that I'm going to be, recommending people go see.
Right.
Yeah, not a super phenomenal film, but we did have a lot of fun with it at South by Southwest, and
yeah,
I got when we tweeted coming out of that movie that we had seen it, and Laura Barnes started tweeting us back and sending us threatening messages by direct message. That gave me goosies.
A lot more fun than the movie itself.
A way better marketing. That's the exact opposite of some of the movies like like The Gift or whatever, where it was like the marketing for that movie was way better than the movie ended up being.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right. Well, there you have it. Our worst movies of 2015, guys. We've banked a few minutes, so maybe we can just throw some honorable mentions in here. I've got a couple of them that I want to talk about real quick. These two almost made
honorable
my list.
mention. What? These are honorable mention worst movies.
Worst movies.
Worst movies. So these almost made my list, but Fantastic Four was just that much more awful. But Ted 2. Ted 2, yeah. I loved the original Ted, so, that movie holds a special place in my heart for some reason. I just really liked it, and the sequel, was just, I don't know, it was bad for me. And then poor Mila Kunis, Jupiter Ascending was, just
mess.
It was a mess. Channing Tatum on space roller skates. Rollerblades, whatever you want to call them, this movie just tried to be like Game of Thrones in space, and it ended up being like dog crap in space, like so bad. So yeah, those are my two. What about you, Will?
It's actually a really good analogy, dog crap.
Right.
So I've got a laundry list of movies. Pixels was my least favorite. Fantastic Four is one of my dishonorable mentions. The other one that was like in really hot contention, I guess the three that I was super cycling between, was a movie called The Lazarus Effect, which was a horror movie that should have absolutely been way better than it was. It starred Olivia Wilde. It starred Mark Duplass, both people who I'm very high on. It has Evan Peters in it. It has Donald Glover. It has Ray Wise. And it's directed by David Gelb, who, if you have a Netflix account, you've probably seen Jiro Dreams of Sushi, which is kind of his claim to fame. Had a lot of elements that should have made it a great movie. It was an absolute turd. It was one of the most frustrating films of the year. Past that, a few others, Ted 2 and Jupiter Ascending are on my shit list. I did not like the remake of Poltergeist.
That was the one I thought you were going to go for.
It was my fourth least favorite movie.
Okay.
3 movies edged it out. Jim and the Holograms is down there. 50 Shades of Grey is down there.
So underrated.
The Wedding Ringer is bad. Poor Josh Gad has 2 movies in my worst list this year, and I hate to say this one. I know people enjoy these characters quite a bit, but I didn't care for the Minions movie.
Oh. Yeah, Will, you just stole my last one that I had that was unsullied.
Go into detail, because all I did was mention
Minions is my honorable mention. I had a bunch on my list. So I had Unfriended, as you heard, Excess Flesh, and Disaster Playground, the 2 worst movies we saw at South by far to me. Ted 2, you mentioned it, Brad. Pixels, we mentioned it, and then Minions. And I hate to crap on the Minions because I think they're beloved characters. Brad, I know you love the characters, and I think I love the Minions in the Despicable Me movies, and then they went and turned them into the most boring, generic, uninteresting characters in a 90-minute movie that I've ever seen in my life. It's kind of one of those things where maybe it is a bad idea to take sidekick characters from a successful movie and try to make them, their own thing. It definitely didn't work in this movie for me. I was pretty bored. There was something off about the production of this movie. And when I looked at the credits, it looked like it was made, and this sounds really bad, but it looked like it was made by some kind of French production studio or something. And I don't understand how some of these movies are made. Maybe the Despicable Me movies. Is that all DreamWorks or something? I forget, but
yeah, they're all DreamWorks.
Yeah. It's almost like this was farmed out to somebody to go make a DreamWorks movie, and it really fell flat. I hope we don't. I mean, I hope we don't get another Minions movie, and if we do, I hope I don't have to go see it.
Well, unless we're reviewing it for the show.
Yeah. Right.
So was Despicable Me and Minions, is it DreamWorks or Illumination Entertainment?
Oh, you're right. It is Illumination.
I think it's Illumination. Yeah. Okay. And so Jim, you mentioned that you think it's like a French thing. The film is actually, the animation is done at least back in Despicable Me by a French studio called MacGuff. And it's now owned.
It doesn't sound like a French studio.
It was, but it's now apparently it's owned by Illumination Entertainment. So that's probably why you're seeing all those French names. And I agree. I mean, this is a movie that I was really looking forward to. I even have my giant Dave Minion. Yeah, I love the Minions. But this movie was, I don't know. It had some fun stuff, but it just bombed. No, not so great. I mean, with Sandra Bullock in it as like a villain, how could it go wrong? And yet, it does.
God, it was. That was one of the things about the movie that I just thought didn't work either.
Right. Mm-hmm. Well, guys, we've handed out a lot of awards tonight. If we had to actually make them into real awards, we would probably go bankrupt if we had to plate them in gold. Maybe we'll do some Photoshop stuff. Mm-hmm. But we've had a bunch of folks hanging out with us tonight. You guys have been kind of quiet. So we're curious, what would your picks be for some of these categories? And feel free to write in. Next week we're going to be talking about our top films of 2015. But you can get in on the fun. Maybe we'll take a few minutes and share some of your choices. So if you're listening back in iTunes or Stitcher a couple days from now and you're like, oh my God, they didn't talk about this movie, just send us a comment, shoot us an email, brad@moviebrotherspodcast.com. And
here's an idea. Put the categories on our Facebook post for the episode and have people provide comments for the categories.
Definitely. Because this is the type of thing where I enjoy these types of lists because I get to hear about movies that maybe I didn't get a chance to see when they were theatrically released. So maybe some of our listeners have got some stuff that fell through the cracks that I missed. I would love to come back in next week and say, oh my God, John Smith from Sunshine, Florida told us that this particular movie was the most underrated. I watched it, and I've got a new movie in my top 10 list for this week. I want that experience.
We'll have to put something on Facebook. Will, maybe you would like to put that post together.
I will put some posts together. It seems like that might be, we'll talk, but I think that might be some fun conversations on social media this week.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, guys, let's look to wrap things up with some plugs. Will, what do you want to plug this week?
So I want to plug a movie that I watched on Netflix today. It's a movie that's been sitting at the top of my queue for a while. It played at a festival I was at earlier in the year, and I missed it. It's a documentary called Electric Boogaloo The Wild Untold Story of Canon Films. So Canon Films, for those who aren't aware, is a film studio that was known for cranking out movies left and right. It definitely went for a quantity over a quality approach. Sometimes putting out as many as I think something like 30 films a year. It's just ridiculous the volume they put these out. A lot of them were bad. A lot of them were movies that someone else was making a movie and they caught wind of it, so they would then try to beat that film to the theaters by a couple of weeks so that they could take the legs out from under each. But at the same time, it launched a lot of careers. Brad, you mentioned the film Over the Top earlier. This was a Canon film, and it's one where Sylvester Stallone ended up getting paid a ridiculous amount of money to star in it, the most I guess someone had been paid up to that point, and it kind of set into motion the actor pay scale that we have today. It launched the careers of people like Jean-Claude Van Damme and Chuck Norris. The He-Man movie was a Canon film. So is Death Wish 2 and Death Wish 3. They're not good Death Wishes. So there are a lot. This is a very interesting story about these two guys who have this love for film and this money-hungry shark in the water sense for business, and how things went well for them and how things didn't end up going well for them. Fascinating watch. It's not the strongest documentary I've ever seen, but it's a light, entertaining watch, especially if you're the type of guy who, like me, loves movies and loves the story and loves the stories behind the movie. So it's called Electric Boogaloo: The Wild Untold Story of Canon Films.
Well, there you go. All right, nice. Jim, how about you?
I don't have a movie plug this week. We were away, so we couldn't really get to the movies this weekend, or at least to a movie that I would really plug, I guess. So I'll just plug our local Movie Bears group, who are desperately lacking in recent movie outings. I think the last one was Krampus, maybe, for Christmas, and we're definitely due for another one. So it's our local Movie Bears group. It's called Botop Movie Bears, BOTOP Movie Bears. Find us on Facebook and look for our next outing.
Indeed, indeed. Awesome. For me, I want to plug a movie this week we've already talked about a few times on this show, and simply because it's still in theaters right now, and you may not have seen it yet because you've been buying into some of what you may have heard from people who haven't seen the movie, trashed it, and have convinced you not to go, and that is The Good Dinosaur. It's still in theaters. It's a great film. I mean, we enjoyed it. Will, I know you enjoyed it the least out of all of us. But it was one that we recommended. And now is your chance while everyone and their brother is seeing Star Wars, which, by the way, still breaking all kinds of crazy records. Now's your chance to go see The Good Dinosaur before it's gone. Such a great film. I even want to see it a fourth time, so that should tell you something. Yeah, that's my point.
There are soft spots. We have our soft spots. You know what I mean?
Yes, we do.
Oh, yeah.
That's definitely one for me, for sure.
Oh. All right. Well, guys, I think that wraps us for this week. Next week, we're going to be discussing our favorite / top / best films of 2015. But we do have one more plug, guys. Just came in. We have a plug from Sam, a friend of ours, a listener of the show, from Kansas. Is it Kansas? I think it's Kansas.
Mm-hmm.
He comes up as Sam (KS) in my phone address book, so I think it is. Anyway, he says he's plugging Star Wars since no one has seen that movie at all. So, yeah.
It's a good plug. It's a good plug. People need to go see this thing.
I don't know that I've heard of Star Wars. I mean, Sam, if you're plugging, is that the one with Spock Skywalker or whatever? He's all like, live long and use the Force or something. I don't know, but people are talking about it. Yeah. And Sam's joking that I forgot where he lives. No, it's called Humor. You should try it sometime. Anyway. All right. Well, that wraps us for this week, guys. I know, random, whatever. But we'll see you all next time. Take it easy. Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.